In the iron temples of bodybuilding, where clangs of metal echo ritualistic devotion, one man stood not only to lift, but to think.
If nothing else, heavy duty has at least caused bodybuilders to start thinking. No longer do bodybuilders accept someone's training routines or diet regimen just because he has won some titles. We know by now that in the great majority of cases, it's a superior genetic predisposition that was responsible for the development of most champions. But let's go further than questioning any one individual's training practices and go right to the foundation of conventional training. Where is it ordained, for instance, that one repetition must be followed immediately by another? Who says that a weight should be used in one's exercises that is light enough or heavy enough to allow for the performance of 10 repetitions?
In a world dominated by routine and replication, Mike Mentzer became a singular voice of dissent, intellect, and scientific rigor. He didn't merely question tradition, he dismantled it, word by word, rep by rep.
Most of us train according to tradition, convention, and imitation.
Mentzer's challenge wasn't superficial, it was surgical. Like a philosopher wielding a scalpel, he cut through decades of dogma. His target was not just the exercises we perform, but the very way we conceptualize what training is. He warned against blind adherence to cultural norms within the gym, exposing how even the name of the activity misleads.
Just because we call this thing weightlifting, it's not cast in stone that you just lift weights.
The implication was clear. Bodybuilding should be about more than motion. It should be about meaningful contraction, measured effort, and intentional stimulus. Mentzer wasn't merely calling for rebellion, he was calling for reason, a shift from sweat-fueled superstition to strategic muscular stimulation, a shift from the illusion of progress to the reality of biological adaptation.
Where is it cast in stone that you should only lift weights? It's a tradition. And again, if you want to take a truly scientific approach to this thing, you've got to reject tradition, or at least question it.
Thus was born the heavy-duty system, a fascinating expression of training rooted not in repetition, but in rationale. What follows is an in-depth exploration of the core principles and practices that define Mike Mentzer's legacy. Static hold training, rest-pause training, Infitonic training, and Omni-Contraction Training. Each method is a scalpel in the hands of the thinking bodybuilder, designed to carve out maximum muscle growth with minimal waste. Static hold training, redefining effort from the ground up. The heavy-duty approach begins with a shocking proposition, one that would sound heretical in most gyms.
I have come to discover that lifting weights is a waste of time. In fact, dear listener, you would do much better to start holding the weights in the contracted position, only doing the lowering of the weight.
To most, the lifting phase is the very act of training. To Mentzer, it was inefficient, even counterproductive. He explained that the positive portion, the act of lifting, was least effective for growth, and yet the most costly in terms of recovery.
Let me give you the rationale. The positive portion of any exercise, the lifting of the weight, is the least productive in terms of stimulating an increase. Why? Because it's the weakest part of the movement. You cannot lift nearly as much weight as you can hold, and you can't hold as much weight as you can lower. On top of that, the positive, or the lifting of the weight, is a negative in that it is the one portion of the exercise that makes the deepest inroad into recovery ability. That is a negative.
From this insight emerged static hold training, a method that replaces flashy motion with focused intensity. Trainees hold a heavy load in the fully contracted position, pushing against time and fatigue for up to 15 seconds before deliberately lowering the weight.
What I've been having my clients doing is holding the weights in the fully contracted position for up to 15 seconds And then once they recognize their static strength is about to go, they start lowering the weight very slowly.
This approach strikes at the heart of what Mentzer believed bodybuilding should be.
As a bodybuilder, dear listener, your primary goal is not to lift heavy weights, but to achieve high intensity or maximum contractions of the muscle.
The contracted position, he argued, was the only place where every fiber is fully engaged.
Obviously, the only place that you can achieve a maximum contraction would be in the fully contracted position. That is the only position of the exercise where 100% of the muscular bulk can be activated. So here's the idea. Let's eliminate the positive. It doesn't contribute much to growth stimulation. Beyond that, it's even more negative, again, in that it makes a deep inroad into recovery ability. Start holding your weights in the contracted position, at least in those exercises where you have resistance in the contracted position, and then lower. Let's go back to the leg training. With my clients, I have been putting a heavier weight than normal on the leg extension machine, a weight considerably heavier than they can handle for 6 to 10 reps to failure. I help them into the straight leg contracted position, and they hold it there for as long as they can, literally, until they give me a signal that their static or holding ability is about to go out. And then I emphasize, now start to lower it very slowly under control.
The method was minimal, but the results were monumental. He cited a client whose leg extension performance skyrocketed after just a few sessions of static holds.
I had one client start up with me 3.5 months ago. He couldn't do the whole stack on the leg extension for even 1 rep. I forget what he started out with, but after 2 months, he was up to the whole stack for 14 reps. Then he hit a sticking point. He couldn't go beyond 14 reps for 3 workouts. This was when I started working with the idea of static contracted holds and lowerings. For 2 or 3 workouts in a row, all he did was hold a very heavy weight in the straight leg position and lowered it, doing it 2 times in that fashion as I described. The next workout, we went back to see if there was a carryover to the positive strength, and his leg extensions went up to 20 reps. That's a phenomenal improvement, and I'm seeing this with many other people.
Mentzer returned to his core thesis with emphasis.
As a bodybuilder, your primary concern is not to lift heavy weights. That's the purpose of a power lifter or Olympic lifter. As a bodybuilder, your primary consideration, your overriding concern should be to achieve high-intensity muscular contraction.
Static hold training wasn't merely a method, it was a new language of training, one where every second in the contracted position spoke louder than sets of traditional reps ever could. Rest-pause training, intensity without compromise. While he would recommend static holds during his career as a personal trainer in the 1990s, Mentzer had been experimenting with unorthodox methods of increasing the intensity of muscular contraction for decades prior to this. In 1979, for example, while competing as a professional bodybuilder, Mike came up with rest-pause training as a means to increase the intensity of muscular contraction. Rest-pause is a method that maintains maximum effort while cleverly sidestepping the limitations of fatigue and metabolic buildup. According to Mike,
what I needed was a method that provided for intense maximal contractions while slowing the buildup of metabolites and the onset of oxygen debt, which prevent ultra-intense effort.
The rest-pause structure is simple but devastating. Execute a maximum effort rep, rest briefly, usually 10 to 15 seconds, then repeat. Each repetition stands alone, pure and uncompromised.
With rest-pause training, I warm up a given area thoroughly first by doing a couple of sets with a lighter weight leading up to the heavy weight.
I was very happy, too, because I was experimenting immediately prior to that for the first time with the rest-pause training, something that Dorian Yates has been doing lately.
Right. and it worked. I had cut my workouts back to only 7 sets and achieved a very, very heavy, that was one of my most heavily muscle conditions. My muscles, I remember my muscles even feeling heavier. I just felt heavily muscled, and more heavily muscled at that contest than at any other contest.
Yet Mentzer was never reckless. He tempered intensity with insight. High-effort work required high-quality recovery. Without it, progress stalls, or worse, reverses.
Remember that once you induce muscular growth stimulation through hard training, you must allow that growth to take place. If you're constantly overtraining and not giving yourself enough time between workouts to recover, how can you expect to grow? Remember, you've got to recover first. Growth takes place secondarily. I would also suggest that you do not do more than a total of 3 sets per body part. You can also incorporate rest pause into your normal heavy-duty routine. For instance, when training your chest, you might do 1 set of incline presses, rest pause style, and then proceed with 1 or 2 cycles of pre-exhaustion with forced reps and negatives and so forth. If you desire to try rest pause exclusively, don't continue the program more than 4 to 6 weeks, as it is as mentally demanding as it is physically and can cause you to burn out and lose motivation.
Rest pause is not about cramming in more sets. It's about honoring the biological reality of adaptation. Stimulate, then step back. Progress demands discipline, not just under the bar, but away from it. Infitonic training, dominating the negative. To those who had mastered rest pause and static holds, Mentzer offered a more intense, more demanding innovation, Infitonic training, a method that targets the eccentric phase, where muscles are strongest and most responsive.
The question may now arise, where do we go after rest pause training? How could you possibly train more intensely than that? Well, the answers are new heavy-duty training methods, Infitonic training, and Omni-Contraction training.
Infitonic training involves the use of a partner to apply downward resistance during the lowering phase. The goal? Make every inch of descent an act of absolute resistance.
Infitonic training is very similar to rest pause, in that each rep is a maximum effort, with the added difference, however, that the negative aspect of each rep is also maximum. In other words, you'll do your regular rest pause maximum repetition, but now what you're going to do as well is lower the weight very slowly with a little bit additional downward pressure being provided by your training partner. In most cases, the weight that allows for 1 maximum positive rep will be sufficient for the negative rep that follows. Where it is not, again, I suggest your partner provide additional downward resistance by pushing down on the weight while you fight it up.
Yet even in the fire of intensity, Mentzer prioritized safety and control.
Your partner must be very careful, however, and not give so much downward pressure that you lose control and hurt yourself. He has to be very attuned to what you're doing, and if he's not, he may provide too much pressure and cause an injury.
This was high-stakes training, brutal in demand, but meticulous in execution. The mission remained unchanged.
Keep in mind that the key to generating more and more effort is to make each muscular contraction as severe and as intense as possible.
With Infitonic training, Mentzer took the body's strongest movement, the negative, and weaponized it for hypertrophy. Omni-Contraction training, total domination of the rep. At the pinnacle of the heavy-duty hierarchy lies Omni-Contraction training, a method designed to tap into every facet of muscular strength. Mentzer described it succinctly.
In my book, Heavy Duty, I mentioned the fact that our skeletal muscles each have 3 levels of strength: positive or raising, static or holding, and negative or lowering of the weight. Each of these refers to a different type of contraction: concentric, eccentric, and static contraction. The ultimate intensity method would be one that provided for maximum effort on each of these types of contractions on each and every rep. Hence comes the name of the method, Omni-Contraction, or all contractions.
Unlike conventional reps that emphasize just one or two phases of motion, Omni-Contraction demands total muscular participation. During the eccentric or negative phase, the lifter pauses 3 times at distinct points in the descent. At each pause, they attempt to reverse the motion, a feat that should be impossible. Then hold the position against gravity.
After warm-up, choose a weight that allows for a maximum single as in rest pause training and Infitonic. But this time, as you lower the weight in the negative aspect, stop the downward progression at 3 different points in the range of motion. One close to the top, not quite towards the midway point, then stop it again at the middle, and once at a point near the bottom, not quite towards the extended position. Hold the weight in each one of these 3 different positions and attempt to reverse the downward motion and actually try to raise the weight again, which should be impossible. And hold each position for 2 to 3 seconds at the most. Perform just like rest pause by resting 10 seconds between each of the 4 or 5 reps of the set. You might also select 3 different positions, 3 different static hold positions for each repetition so that you work many more points in the entire range of motion statically.
This approach is relentless. By engaging all 3 types of muscular strength, positive, static, and negative, in a single prolonged effort, the body is forced to recruit every fiber available to maintain control and resist failure. Unlike traditional training methods that may leave gaps in stimulation, Omni-Contraction leaves nothing untouched. It ensures that all the fibers involved in each contraction type are systematically and thoroughly taxed, leaving no stone unturned in the quest to stimulate maximum muscle growth. Mike Mentzer's heavy-duty system is a masterclass in intensity with intent. He didn't advocate doing more, he insisted on doing better. From static holds to Omni-Contractions, every method is forged in a singular belief.
For optimal results, the single most important factor is intensity of effort. The results you realize will be totally dependent on the energy you put forth. So give it your all and realize your ambitions.
Growth isn't a mystery, it's biology. Stimulate, recover, adapt, repeat. And always with the mind sharpened by reason, not dulled by routine. Mike Mentzer didn't just change how we train, he changed how we think about training. And in doing so, he left behind more than a method. He left a movement, one that calls on every bodybuilder to train not longer, but smarter.